sit back and enjoy, and hopefully we'll finish up being much the wiser by the end of this presentation. Have a good day. Enjoy your time here. Thank you very much. Albert?
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming here today. Thank you for braving this weather. Braving this beautiful 10 degree or 12 degree nice sunny fall day to come here and listen about something that actually purports to be better than that. And I'll prove to you, I'll show you something about it. I'm not going to give you an opinion, I'm just going to give you information. You will get a lot of opinion articles on how good marijuana is, how bad it is. I'm going to tell you, nobody has studied this sufficiently to make those two statements really true. What we have studied, I'm going to give you a little presentation now. So I'm going to start with the fact that we have just legalized marijuana, the true north, strong and free. Okay. We moved to the true north, stoned and maybe vacant. That's my attempt to make it a little funny to start with. So let's see whether I can actually get this thing moving. Cannabis. Cannabis is not a new herb. It's believed to be one of the oldest domesticated crops. Cannabis sativa has been used for thousands and thousands of years. Cannabis that we use now is just a different strain of the same cannabis sativa. At first it was hemp. It was grown throughout Europe purely for the fact it was a fast-growing crop and the fibers were quite useful. In fact, useful enough to make clothes, dresses. So hemp was useful. Hemp seed oil was used. Again, no medicinal value, nothing at all. Hemp seed oil is just something for rubbing that people used at that time. Let's talk a little bit about marijuana then. Marijuana looks just like hemp because it's of the same strain. But what is it? Cannabis sativa is the same plant but just a different strain. But it has over 421 different chemical compounds, including over 60 cannabinoids. The most important is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. Everybody knows this as THC. We also have another one, CBD. And they're the terpenes, which gives a smell and can be used to manipulate the psychoactivity of cannabis. What's all the hullabaloo about it? Well, in the 70s, or up to then, we smoked the dried leaves and dried flowers. Now it's more sophisticated. Because we detected that when we smoked the dried leaves and dried flowers, we had a good feeling. Well, if smoking the dried leaves gives us a little good feeling, if we could get what is in it and concentrate it, we will get 10 times a good feeling. So what we did, we tried to get better. So we have cultivated a strain that actually flowers at a higher yield. We found that the flowers had a higher concentration of THC. And what we did, we also discovered that when the marijuana plant flowers, it's flowering like any other plant to be fertilized and then produces a seed. But if they remove the male trees from around it, the female trees will just keep flowering and flowering and flowering in much more concentrated fashion. So they cultivated that, and it's called sinsemilla. Sinsemilla is a compound word. Sin, without. Semilla, seed. So without seed. So flowering without seed. So now we have a better thing. Look at that. Really good flowering, no seeds. So what's so hot about sinsemilla? The levels of THC in sinsemilla cannabis are at least twice that of fertilized cannabis. 10 times higher sometimes, depending on where it's grown. Yet we want more bang. So we find ways to even concentrate the sinsemilla. Look at what we have now. The dried flowers and buds we can use now are 30% THC. The hash, which is grown from the flowers and the oil is taken from it, is 60% THC. Hash oil concentrate is 80 to 90% THC. And then we take that and we use butane to dissolve it and then dry it out, and we get something called shatter. You will see that because the government is also legalizing the sale of shatter. Shatter is THC in a highly concentrated form. And there are two others, which is keef and rosin. I'll tell you how we use that in a second. What I want you to know is that when John Lennon smoked marijuana in the 1960s, it was 3% THC. Now you're getting 60% THC. So it's two different things that is happening. So let's right now get out to the nitty-gritty of it. We're not talking about botany here. What we're talking about is THC, CBD, and terpenes. What happens when they get into the body? They are organic compounds, which means they have an action and they're broken down. When they get into the body, they will start doing something until the liver starts breaking it down. So basically, the THC has a little time to go and do what it has to do, and then the liver breaks it down, like everything else. Alcohol is the same thing. Alcohol gets into your system, the liver breaks it down. When it breaks it down, it puts it into a hydrolysis. And same thing with THC. But THC is fat soluble. It's not water soluble. Alcohol is water soluble. It goes through the gut easily. THC is fat soluble. Do you know what that means? It means that when it goes into the system and is flowing around in the bloodstream, the fat cells absorb it. So the liver only gets to detoxify a small percentage of the THC that's taken in. The rest is stored in the fat cells of the body and then released slowly. Which is why it is stated that the half-life of THC in the body is 2 to 6 days. You may think that you have it for 2 hours or 1 hour, but it takes about 2 to 6 days to get rid of the THC that's stored in the body. And of course, while that is stored in the fat cells, if you smoke again, you have more coming in, more being stored, and more being stored. Eventually, you have a nice saving of it. It's a great savings bank of THC that's stored in there. So let's see what happens. What about the law? What makes people use marijuana? People use marijuana for the psychoactive effect. We'll talk a little about that shortly. They also use it for the medical effect. We'll talk a little about that. Both these effects come through the same mechanism. The mechanism they come through is through the nerve pathways. A nerve pathway is not like an electrical wire. You can take an electrical wire, connect it here, then connect it there, and electrons pass through and immediately go from one to another. A nerve is different. I think it's fascinating. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of how a nerve works. Inside the sheath of myelin, there are cells. A nerve cell is long. Compare a regular cell to an apple and a nerve cell to an English cucumber. A nerve cell is within the sheath. And what happens when the one side of it gets stimulated, the skin, the ectoplasm, the skin starts changing, and the pores in the skin allow iron from the inside to move to the outside. In other words, it destabilizes the electrical nature of the cell, the electrical contiguity of the cell. And as a result, that cell is a little disturbed. It disturbs the next cell, and disturbs the next cell, and disturbs the next, and then eventually comes to the end of the nerve. At that end, what we have? A nerve end. So what do you get there? We have something called a ganglion, or a ganglion to go out, or a synapse. At the end of that nerve cell, that sensory cell going to the brain, there's a synapse. And I'd like to show you a little bit about the synapse. This part I hope will work. Yeah. As at the end, a message comes down here, and what it does, it releases some neurotransmitters. You've heard about serotonin, you've heard about acetylcholine, you've heard about apomorphines, you've heard about these transmitters. What they do, they come down and they float across from the end of the nerve to the next level, the receptor site. And what you see there is that at that next level, we have little receptor sites. That they then stimulate these receptor sites and then start that whole process going down, a downward movement. And that's natural. Now what does marijuana do? There are two actions of marijuana, an agonist and an antagonist. I will explain the meaning of those two words for you. An antagonist is something that prevents you from doing something. An antagonist, for instance, you are impaired, you can't drive your car, your friend takes the keys and you can't drive it. He's an antagonist. An agonist is your friend who takes your keys and goes into your car and goes for a joyride. He does his own thing. So you have now two types of actions. Or perhaps I'll give you, I thought of an example I should give you. You're sitting in a room, there's a window, you're looking outside, and you see some interesting activities outside that's coming through the window. Good. Somebody comes and they put some drapes over the window, so you can't see the activity. That's an antagonist. Somebody else comes and takes a TV screen that looks like a window and places it in the window and starts showing you a totally different picture. You don't know that it's not what is going on outside, but you're seeing the new picture. That's an agonist. So you get the difference? Agonist, antagonist. THC is an agonist. CBD is an antagonist. By the way, so is alcohol. So think of how this works. If CBD and THC are taken together, the CBD goes into those receptor sites and sits in it, so nothing else can go in. The CBD has an action. It blocks the transmission of the... Am I over-confusing you? You need to know this because I'm going to use it in 5 or 6 minutes. It blocks the transmission. Think of going to the dentist. The dentist is going to inflict pain, so he gives you an antagonist. He gives you an anesthetic. It blocks the movement. You still have the activity that initiates the pain, but you don't feel it because between the action and the reception, it's been blocked. CBD is a blocker, which is good. Good because in some cases you don't want the impulses to come down. Like for instance in ataxia, like for instance in epilepsy, like for instance in chronic pain. You want some CBD. If you use the CBD with the THC, what happens? They fight for the receptor sites. And who gets there first wins. So sometimes you will have a tablet that your doctor has given you with CBD and THC, and one day you take it and the CBD wins, and you feel comfortable. Another day you take it, the THC wins, and he starts making you dance with the stars. The same tablet, different reactions. We do not yet know how to control that. Okay, I went ahead of that. And then the medical attraction is what I just told you. CBD does not cure anything, but it eases some things. And it works by being an antagonist, like in the dental block. It works here. Again, if the CBD occupies that, the THC can't occupy. The good thing about it is that we have billions of these little synapses. So some of them are going to be affected, some are not going to be. So the recreational activity is THC, the giver of jollity. How does it do that? As an agonist, THC starts the forward trigger. Remember the television in the window? It starts its own. You get its own picture. And since the picture that THC is stimulating in the receptor sites are not controlled, you can get any of a variety. In other words, what you get is psychedelia. Let's get into a little bit more complex. There are lots of synapses, and therefore, lots of variations of the antagonist effects. So you see, by pushing aside the natural agonists that stimulate the receptors, yes?
Sorry. So if the CBD occupies the space before, then where does the THC go?
It's still in the bloodstream, but remember there are millions of these receptor sites. Okay, so it will go to another one. In other words, we don't know where it will go. It's just a guesswork. You take it and it goes somewhere, some goes other places. And of course, you know it's also stored in the body, so it acts. Okay? In medical marijuana, what they try to do is make the balance between THC and CBD a little bit different. So you get more CBD than THC, but you still get THC in medical marijuana. So basically we get psychedelia with infinite variations. That's the attraction. What's wrong with that? It's fun. It's fun like that, isn't it? You go on a roller coaster ride, you get some thrills. It's fun. What's wrong with having fun? And if the marijuana, the THC comes in and bypasses the work that you have to do to go and have fun, it's almost like being on a roller coaster ride while you're lying down in bed. Woo! What's wrong with that? A lot. You see, by bypassing the physical, it can allow the end product to be enjoyed over and over. In other words, if mommy or daddy gives the kids some money to go to Canada Wonderland, you go on the roller coaster, you do it, you enjoy it, you go for it another time, you enjoy it, you go for it the third time, you enjoy it, and then you get bored. You don't do it again. When the THC is in there, you have no choice. It does it, and does it, and does it, until the liver is able to get rid of it. So until that is happening, you are enjoying your roller coaster ride for as long as it's there. So it waits and keeps going back without any effort. Okay? Now, I compare it like having a full 3,000 calorie meal in a capsule. You don't have to chew. You don't have to use knife and fork. You just do this. And you have 3,000 calorie meal. Well, isn't it easy to do another and another and another? Because there's no work attached to getting the things until, of course, you get a heart attack. Now, a roller coaster ride lasts a few minutes, but not continuously. You get bored after a while. But with an ingested substance, you have no real control. Remember the agonist? Oh, it's working now. See? So then the agonist is a bully. It not only rushes into the receptor site, it stays there for some time. So not only exciting existing activities, it replaces them. That's where I want to lead you. Think of it. It not only excites or creates new activities, it replaces the ones that should be there. It's like you going on the roller coaster ride and not going to school. You have fun, but you miss out on something you can learn. With this, you can have fun, but you miss out on something you can learn. Or the TV window. What you experience is entertaining, not educating. It requires no effort, so you can partake in it for a long time. You have no control. It stops when it is ready, not when you're ready. It stops when it is ready. Until your liver hydrolyzes all the THC, it's going to be acting on your synapses and on your neurons. While this is present, other stimulation is blocked. You lose out on real experiences that are blocked from activating the mind, or they're distorted or toned down. and therefore losing cognitive growth. In other words, you may not become more stupid, you just get less smart. Depending on how much is used or how often, the concentration. Remember, it's also still going to be released from the fat cells. So after that talk, after that reefer, you're not out of the woods. But is marijuana any more noxious to the mind development than the roller coaster? Or so just sitting down and watching TV and doing nothing? Is it more toxic? I don't think so. But it's easier to excuse it. It's easier to use it. It's harder to stop it and harder to overcome it when you abuse it. Why? Because agonists not only stimulate new activity, the stimulation also irritates the receptor sites. Again, go back to those little receptor sites. They are stimulated by natural hormones. You are now stimulating some acid. It's not acid, it's an alcohol, but you're now stimulated with something that irritates it. So it not only irritates it, it erodes it. So you lose receptor sites. Thank God we have a couple of billion of them. So you can afford to lose a couple. But how many of those are you ready to use? So I've tried to use some Photoshop and see all these receptor sites damaged. So this synapse is half functioning. Still functions, but you're going to rely on others. So I agree that marijuana is no more noxious than alcohol, and it is not more noxious than TV watching. But I have three concerns. As an agonist, it can damage the receptor site and lead to chronic impairment in intellectual growth. It's bad because it's good. It is so good at giving what we ask it to give, which is dissociation and virtual entertainment. It is bad because being so good, it effectively blocks what is necessary. I used to say we have 70 years to figure out, to develop ourselves in life. But now that I've gone way past that, I say we have 90 years. It's still not enough. It damages where it acts. Damaged synapses not only can't do what they're designed to do, they also initiate their own spontaneous activity. Can I get that complexity? The damaged thing is not that it's shut down. It is now not working. It is working improperly. So you now get new stimulation from receptor sites that are not being stimulated naturally and initiating their own downward movement to your perception and reception. This translates into psychoses and something called tachyphylaxis. Tachyphylaxis is the need to use stronger stuff to overcome the resistance of the body to the stuff you're using. So what are the general effects? Well, you could use it, you figure it out. Since it affects all neurons, and ganglia, it will affect everything. It can affect the way your heart is stimulated to beat. It can affect the way your gut is stimulated to work. It can affect the way your kidneys are stimulated. It can affect every other aspect of the body. All organ systems are activated by nerve impulses, and they must go through synapses. So the same effect will play out in all of these systems. And then there is the dissociation, which is the thing that I am more concerned about. It can block the receptor sites and make a total dissociation between you and the world. A marijuana user can be so relaxed that the world could fall apart and he doesn't care. And guess who loses out? So now let's look at how it is used. We talked about smoking, which is how we started. Joints, reefers, they can be used in pure form or mixed with a cigarette. Tolkien burns the substance to release the THC. But in doing so, it burns some of the THC and releases some other compounds that you don't necessarily want. You can eat it. Cookies, gummy bears. In fact, cannabis are also are made using marijuana oil. The important thing to know here, THC is fat soluble. Therefore, you can't have tea. Black tea with marijuana does nothing. It just goes through the system. You don't absorb it. Why? Because the THC needs fat to be absorbed. Put some cream in that marijuana tea, and you will notice a big difference in how you feel. Number two, it takes a couple of hours to go through the gastrointestinal tract. Unlike alcohol, alcohol is absorbed across the stomach wall. So you can take a few drinks and you can start feeling the effect. Because this is fat soluble, it has to pass through the stomach, go through the duodenum, into the ileum, and there it starts getting absorbed. So it takes a little while before it gets into the stream. And there are people who will take a cookie, a marijuana, he does nothing for me. Okay, I'll have another one. And by the time they finish 3, they started feeling the effects of number 1. And then number 2 and 3 start adding to it. Drinking tea, eating, vaping. Have you ever heard of vaping? That's the biggest trend in marijuana now. Vaping uses hash oil. Remember, 80% THC. We don't know about the solvents. Remember I said they use butane as a solvent. They use other solvents to hair straightener is another solvent they use. And how much of the solvent remains in the shatter that you get, we don't know. So whether cannabis extracts carry dangerous amounts of pesticides or other contaminants, we do not know yet. Some have been tested and some have been found to have pesticides in it that people are vaping. Let's remember the types. The hash oil concentrate is 80%. And these are the toys. Those are the vapors. Vapors, I'm sure you've seen them in malls. I'm sure you've seen people using it. You don't have to light it. It's electrically heated to 358 degrees, I think it is, so that the THC is vaporized. And look at the newest toy. What does that look like to you? What does it look like? It looks like a USB port, doesn't it? You plug it into your computer. It's as small as that. It's a little USB size. That's the newest vapor. Kids are taking it to school. The teacher doesn't know the difference. One puff. Remember, one puff of 80% could be equivalent to 30 puffs of John Lennon's marijuana. The vaping toys and the concentration of the oil bring up new concerns. Toys attract, not just for the use, but for the possession of the toys. It's nice to have my little toy. This allows devious advertising techniques that may circumvent legislation and appeal to use. Sergio was telling me he went this morning, and just outside of the LCB, I don't know why he was next to the LCB, but just passing by, there were some people giving away muffins. Regular, ordinary muffins. It was not the LCBO. It was somebody standing outside getting a captive audience and giving away muffins together with a recipe as to how to make a marijuana muffin. You tell me, isn't that circumventing the legal restrictions on advertising marijuana? You're not advertising marijuana, you're giving away a muffin. It's so easy to get around the legislation. So the legal controls that are coming up in Canada, the legal age is at least 18 or 19. How do we restrict that? How do we police it? If you're of legal age, you can publicly possess, buy, or share 30 grams. Giving or selling cannabis to a young person can have a sentence of 14 years. Illegal to carry it across the border. And in other words, these are specific limitations, but I don't know how they're going to police it. It doesn't tell me a policeman is going to come into your house and see how much your kids, your teenagers are using marijuana in the basement. Does it worry me? I'm not worried about the legislation. I think legal controls are necessary. I'm not worried about the physical health. As with every compound we eat, there will be consequences in the judicious use. You have butter, you spread a little butter on your bread, it's good. You have butter, you spread a pound of butter on your bed, it's bad. So, I'm not worried about the physical health. I'm not worried about the consumption. Adults will feel more at ease. It's like in the early 60s, free sex. Once contraception was there were people who just went around and said, okay, it's free, we can walk around naked, we can behave like animals. It didn't last too long. What I worry about are the youth. Youth are impressionable. They will experiment. That's the nature. But they will do it more freely and more frequently with more potent stuff that's available now. Unless we, the adults, are able to steer them, not from the desire to seek artificial stimulation that stunts mental growth, but into the desire to realize self, seek and build self. In other words, not to stop your youth from using, but to get them attracted to things that will be just as pleasurable, but without the lack of control. We know how to help them differentiate between the benefit of having essential downtime so they can control and the ultimate scourge of pursuing it to intense level they cannot control. I wrote that down, I didn't read it correctly, but you know what I mean. It's better to have them. It's okay to have downtime. It's okay to go on the roller coaster because you can control it. It's okay to go outside and play. It's okay to watch a movie. It's 2 hours. But to do something over which you have no control, even though all you say is, I just go out for 5 minutes with my friends, that 5 minutes can put something that starts acting and they have no control over how it is acting. We can't measure the mind. Nor can we say that we think at the synaptic or neural level. But we do not know that synapses are necessary. In other words, I can see you now because light is leaving you, reaching my eyes, stimulating the rods and cones, starting a nerve activity that ends up in the synapse that stimulates the visual cortex. And if that synapse gets distorted, then what I will see is distorted, even though there's no distortion. You can hear me now, again, for the same reason. If we distort the synapses, what we will get from our experiences in the world is going to be distorted. And if those connections don't carry the information that we need for growing up, we stagnate or shut down the growth of the mind. And this is more important in the formative years of youth. From 0 possibly to maybe 40. I've seen 40-year-old youth in my office that behave no differently from teenagers. And I have to treat them like youth. Because though the body is 40 years old, the mind is still 15. If therefore we want to help them, we should know, why do youth use? Why are youth attracted to use? What can it do to them that we don't want? And what does it give them that seems more exciting than what? Life. You see, youth today are going through something, sometimes, a relatively stressful life. Social media stresses, pain, injury, illness, stresses, privileged boredom, peer pressure. There's one I just feeling left out. This is a big one, by the way. In schools, a lot of youth sometimes just feel left out. It's stressful. Family discord, divorce, fighting, lack of communication, feeling sad or lonely. The problem is, we may think, so what? I went through that when I was a youth. I went through similar type of thing, but I'm telling you something. The things that are happening today are hundreds of times more intense. Not only is the marijuana 100 times more intense, the experiences are 100 times more intense. And as a result, the stresses are 100 times more intense. When I see youth in my office, they tell me about the noises of life. And this thing helps them move away from those feelings and experiences for a short while. But they come back again in a different form. So they must run away again. This is why youth will use and use. Because what they run away from, they come back, it's there, they have to run away again. So they will push the easy button. This one just has become easier to push. Let's summarize what we know so far about marijuana. Marijuana is a bully. It's a bully. When it goes there, it fights the other neurotransmitters for the receptor site, and it wins. It's a bully. It's an agonist, meaning that when it gets to the receptor site, it actually starts or initiates its own new activity. It causes a dissociation from reality. It blocks the receptor sites from receiving enough of the new information, and it destroys receptor sites. So if you want my opinion on marijuana, I would say it's really bad. But I can't. Because there are lots of information that will tell you about these three things. As an agonist, it gives us a great feeling. It gives us some psychedelia. It gives us niceness. It's okay. And you will read a lot of articles that are saying it's better than alcohol. It's better than this. It's okay. It is excreted in by the system. Destruction of receptor sites. You will read articles that will tell you there's a high incidence of brain tumors with marijuana smoking. There's a high incidence of psychoses. But because these are not proven, these are not really well researched articles, they are observations. So I don't care who it is, it could be a professor of neurosurgery in wherever, will tell you, I have observed 10,000 people who have smoked marijuana, and of that, 5% of them have developed psychosis, And you could say, okay, tell me something. Have you looked into that 5% and see whether or not they did other chemicals in addition to marijuana? Well, no, we were studying marijuana. Have you looked at these and see whether or not they would have developed psychosis if they were sitting at home eating a healthy meal and doing nothing because of some genetic or environmental effect? We don't know. So any of these can easily be refuted. So I can't tell you marijuana is bad because it causes psychosis. I can't tell you marijuana is bad because it causes cancer. I can't tell you that marijuana is good because it gives you a nice feeling. What I can tell you is that those two are true, but there's also a dissociation from reality. Look, we've grown up, we've all gone through life, and we know that there are different ways to dissociate from reality. When I was a teenager, I grew up, and there were kids who didn't want to go to school, or if they did go to school, they wouldn't pay attention. And when they finished school, they would hang out at the corners and just chat. They're dissociating from reality. They're not doing anything productive. That was there. That was in everybody's experience. But you know something? When I was growing up, they were the minority. They were the fringe minority. Everybody else were focused, and these people weren't. Today, because the dissociation is so easy to get, so common, so easy for other people to tell us how good it is for you and how easy it is to use, that fringe minority has eroded into the rest of society, and they become the majority. That's what worries me about that. And because it's a bully, it worries me. So, now we have flashy, convenient, easy buttons. This one worries me, by the way, because there's no way a teacher or a mother or somebody can, oh, is that it looks like a USB port. Oh, okay. Let's face it, marijuana is legal. That in itself is not bothersome. What is bothersome is the emphasis on it being innocuous, relaxing, natural, and now legal. Translation, it's now okay to participate. Everybody's doing it. We've always been looking for the easy button. I fear that the easy button is too easy to get now. I'm going to tell you a story about easy buttons. There's a history of flippancy over the years. We've always been looking in mental health, we've always been looking for chemicals that make it seem stable in a world that's becoming more and more disruptive. Sigmund Freud, 1885, discovered cocaine. Sigmund Freud used cocaine. Sigmund Freud gave his friends cocaine. Sigmund Freud gave so much cocaine to one of his friends who was an ophthalmologist that he died from overdose. Sigmund Freud wrote in a paper, cocaine is such a positive drug that were it not for its cost, everyone would be using it. In 1903, Bayer synthesized heroin and promoted heroin as a great cough reliever. It's not addictive, and it's great for your complexion. In 1976, Italy serendipitously discovered Prozac. They were looking for something to treat high blood pressure, and they tested this drug on rats and found that rats were a little bit relaxed. So they transferred it and said, okay, we're going to give it to humans. They're going to be nice and relaxed. They sold it as a cure for depression. In 1999 in Canada, there were 9 million prescriptions written for SSRIs, which is Prozac and the others. Look, by 2003, 15.5 million prescriptions per year in a population of 40 million. So how can we prepare ourselves and how can we prepare our youth? We can't just keep them in the dark and hope that they don't get exposed. It would be nice to keep our kids away and let them go to nice private personal schools. They don't get this. They are going to get it. They're going to get exposed because they're going to watch TV. They might pass by, not the LCBO, they might pass by Toys R Us, not Toys R Us, it would be, what's your favorite, Sandra? 14 and over or something, or maybe one of these, and just outside there'll be somebody giving them some candy, some it wouldn't have marijuana, but it will show them how to use it. Because we can't advertise that marijuana, but we can advertise the toys. We can't use fear and strict constraints. If you use it, I am going to kick you out of the house. No. Instead of blocking the distraction, we must make reality more attractive and manageable. No matter how loud the noises seem to be, what we have to do is to show them that events happen. Events happen as a natural course of life. Things will happen. People will die. Parents will not always talk to each other. Friends will go and have their own friends and leave you alone. Things are going to happen, and that's life. I'm not going to stop it from happening. I'm going to teach you how to actually grow up and feel comfortable in a world that does this. These happen not to frustrate us, but to challenge us. In other words, each of these is an opportunity to build self. We can't take away the soother without showing them how to get a better alternative. And this is just a soother, if they ever do it. I'm saying to you, your kids or the people you know may not necessarily use it. I'm telling you that we are only starting in the promotion. We are only starting the ability to show everybody how nice and normal this will be. We're only starting, and it's going to get worse. We can't wait until they feel overwhelmed to help our youth. We must prepare ourselves to guide them through the mire that is today's world before they get stuck in this. Today's world is tough. Today's world is filled with disruption and change. Okay. What I hope to have done today was to give you not an opinion on how good or bad marijuana is, but I hope to have given you some information on how it works, and as a result, being informed allows you to be able to create your own decisions better. I hope that I've given you a little bit of information on that. I hope the youth who is here have some questions or have some ideas. Please ask it. I thank the youth for participating, because you are going to go through it. It's happening. And you will also get a lot of information in the newspaper. One of the things I was reading recently is the government is showing you why it is right to legalize cannabis. One, it is right because it gives us control over the youth, so that we are not allowing the youth to have it. B, it is right because we are preventing it from reaching the hands of people who will provide it in the illegal market. What they haven't told us is that it is right because it is going to give us about $5 billion a year in tax revenue. They haven't told us it is right because it will give entrepreneurs billions of dollars of resources. Okay? What I've given you today is a little of the inkling. You've got to remember, we are only starting to explore it. We are only starting to research it. So this little inkling that you have, I hope that will give you a little bit of understanding of how this particular situation will affect us in the future. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for participating today. Questions? Any young people with a question? I said young people first. Yes. What do you have? Yeah.
Was CBD, or the oil that contains CBD, legal prior to...
One sec.
And secondly...
One sec. I need to hear you. This is getting bad.
The oil that contains CBD, was it legal prior to this week? And secondly, we know that there's probably medicinal uses for that. Are there any serious side effects to the oil that contains CBD?
Are you talking about the oil or the oil use? The oil?
Yeah.
The oil, the marijuana oil, as I told you here, is 80% THC. It's one of the highest concentrations. Okay, so you have to use small amounts of it. It's used for cooking.
But are you able to, because I saw on TV this week that people in the United States, for example, are marketing just the CBD, not the THC. Is it possible to be able to get the medicinal, and then basically what this guy was saying, as an entrepreneur, he was saying that you don't get the high with the CBD, but it has medicinal properties. So can you get the medicinal properties without getting the high?
Yes, you can get a CBD. The only problem is we are now attempting to separate it. So I don't know how much of this will cling to it at the level that we are now. Maybe in 5 years you can get pure CBD.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Elizabeth, for those people who doesn't know me. I am a registered physiotherapist. And I work in 2 private clinics in GTA. With regards to his question, can you get high with the medicinal marijuana, with the oil? The oil has the highest concentration of the marijuana.
Of THC, yeah.
So I have lots of patients who are using the oil. So these patients have undergone some car accident, or they have this very bad chronic illness that high dosage of medicines cannot take care of the pain. So now they're shifting into taking the oil.
The CBD oil?
Yes. And with my observation with my patient, it's true that they're helping them cope up with their pain. Because of their pain, sometimes they cannot sleep. And that makes them more irritated and more tired because they're not getting enough sleep. However, it's only temporary. So every time they cannot sleep, they take this oil. So every now and then they take and take and take and take. So I have, for example, I have one patient who had car accident. It's been 2 years, and he's been taking this oil. Instead of him getting better, I saw him getting worse. So in physiotherapy, we encourage them to be active. We try them to help them cope up with their pain, treat their pains, but although it's temporary, but we want them to be more active. But then it's very challenging in my part to encourage them to participate with the treatment because they're too relaxed. You know, they're so lethargic. You know, they cannot concentrate with me talking to them because it's gone. They're too relaxed.
Yes.
So it's very challenging.
But
in our
hold on,
now.
there's possibility of what Stefan asked, and this is, there may still be some THC in that. We haven't really purified it sufficiently. So in your question, she was answering it, but there's still some THC. However, she did answer that even if it's just CBD, there are some people who will basically stop living because they don't have any pain. So I don't have to do anything, I'm just relaxed. And she's observing that. So the whole idea is, are we here to just live? Are we a sophisticated fungus who is just sitting around here waiting just to have no pain? Or do we all have a responsibility to go out and learn more about life? So I agree with her.
When I was a teenager, I never have any addictions of alcohol or any of those. But my real addiction was video games. I was really addicted, but really hardcore. And I wanted to know why it's so hard for a youth person to get. Why is so easy for a youth person to get into addictions? And the other thing I would like to ask is, how you can advise to a youth person to say no.
To what person?
A youth person to say no,
Youth.
because right now it's the social pressure. A lot of these guys, they really indeed inside them they want to say no, but they don't know how to say it because probably they're going to lose friends, or they're going to lose because they are facing the places like the school first of all.
You ask a question that has a very complex answer. So I'm not going to be able to deal with it effectively, but I'm going to give you a little summary. You're talking generally about being addicted to something. First of all, the something that we get addicted to is something that gives us pleasure. Whether it's short-lived or not, we're looking for some good feeling. A person who goes to something for good feeling is usually avoiding something that is not a good feeling. So if life is tough, in those examples I gave you, boring, oppressive, we are much more attracted to find something that gives us, whether it's a video game, watch it, hang out at Canada Wonderland, or just sitting down and daydreaming, or talking a few with your friends, this becomes attractive. Once this is attractive, what happens is that every challenge is there to stimulate our ability to create solutions. Once we move here, we're not creating solution for that challenge. Meanwhile, that challenge becomes bigger. So once we leave here and go back there, well, hold on a second, I just ran away from this, and now I came back to this. Wow, I'm going to run away again. Okay? So once we start doing that, as Elizabeth was saying, these people at the CBD, it becomes easy to just sit and do nothing if while doing nothing, I have something that does the work for me. So I now can relax. I don't have to worry with life. So in youth, if this is tough, we go here. In the adult, if this is tough, we stay there. That's a very, very short, simple answer to a complex question.
How you say no? How you can help? How you can tell?
You don't say no.
How you say no to addictions? How you can encourage yourself to say no?
By learning how to make this thing attractive. That's the hard part. Life that may be tough, we have to learn how to make it interesting. That's what a parental role is. To teach a child how to make a tough life interesting. A parent is not here to remove us from a tough life. A parent is here to teach us how to deal with a tough life, because it's always going to be there. So if we have that, we're okay. If we don't have that, it's very natural to go here. And hopefully, at some point in our youth, between 0 and 40, we find somebody who will do the same thing. They will not tell us not to do that. They'll show us how to make life interesting.
Can you comment on any possible links between the use of marijuana and schizophrenia and bipolar?
I mentioned it earlier, but I did not make a comment on it because there has been a lot of evidence of that. However, the evidence is only observation evidence. Okay, people have seen that there are people who smoke a lot who show that, but since there are many variables in a person's life that can lead to psychosis, looking at one is not sufficient. There's always going to be contrary opinions as to the accuracy of your finding. And that's where we are at right now.
Hi, Doctor. I have a concern. I live inside an apartment, top floor, and I'm wondering about the potency of the secondhand smoke. Like, should I be concerned? I have 2 small kids. Is there some negative effects, except the obvious one if you take it, but just from the secondhand smoke? I'm just wondering if you can comment. 90%
THC coming in burned marijuana oil now means that the smoke is going to have a significantly large percentage of THC blown out. So yes, you should be worried. And you should do something about it. Well, thank you. I think we have only about half an hour to get out of this place, and I thank.
What other, as far as health effects, let's say like smoking has, for your lungs and that, does it affect any of the organs like smoking does?
Yes, but not as much as nicotine. Nicotine has a very powerful effect on the peripheral nervous system and directly on the lung. And we have found that out. It took us 70 years to find that out about smoking. It's going to take us 70 years to find out what it does to us. Marijuana.
Okay, thank you.
So, this isn't about the marijuana, but it's about the cigarettes. So, when people got really they really like the cigarette, and so now they sell nicotine gums. Does that affect the body?
Good question. I didn't deal with it. They sell nicotine oil, which kids can use or youth can use in vaping. They vape nicotine, and they think since it's being vaped, it's not being burned, and as a result, less of the burned products get into your lung. However, a higher concentration of nicotine gets in. So a vape is equivalent to smoking 3 or 4 cigarettes. And this is a big, big worry right now among health officials. How to stop youth from vaping nicotine. And let's face it, they can do it in the classroom. Okay? Nobody knows. However, a lot of it is going in. So yes, you're absolutely right about that question. Yes?
So does vaping have like a secondhand smoke effect?
Vaping?
Yes.
Vaping will too.
Okay.
I mean, you're smoking. What you're doing, you're putting X amount of THC here, which is passively absorbed in the alveoli of the lungs. So some will get across and some come back out. So when you blow out, you're still blowing out a certain percentage of the THC. And therefore, you're sitting next to a friend who is vaping, you're going to get some. That's the same question you asked. Yes? I also want to thank Wellspring for allowing us the use of this space today. And I thank you in Harmony for, yes?
One of the concerns they have now is with the e-cigarette replacing regular cigarettes.
That's a vaping. E-cigarette is a vaping. Okay? That's what she was asking about.
So Albert, if we're sitting next to someone or sitting in a bus or a crowded room with someone's vaping, we should be concerned just like as if we were smoking.
Yes, just like if you're sitting next to someone who's smoking a cigarette. The thing about it is that if you're sitting next to someone in a bus smoking a cigarette, you can ask him to put it out.
So they could now be smoking marijuana in a vaporizer, and you could be affected.
Exactly.
Do cigarettes or vapes without nicotine, are they still harmful for you?
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Jeff. Go ahead.
Oh, the cigarettes or the vapes, even if they don't have nicotine, are they still harmful for you?
No, that is not. You're talking about vaping, just perfume type of flowers or something of that nature. So depends on what chemical is in the oil that you're vaping. But the chemicals of nicotine, the chemicals of cannabis are the ones I'm referring to now. But I know we've smoked in Israel. We smoked one of these teas that was nothing happened. There was no psychedelic effect.